It's so difficult to talk to people who are starting from a conclusion, because before you even begin, you have to remove their conclusion. But if they're not telling you what their conclusion is, then what opportunity have you got to remove the blockage in their mind? You need two-way communication, and if they're beginning from a conclusion, there is that blockage in their mind, and they won't move past whatever it is that they're thinking, and they'll align everything you're saying to what they're thinking, or fail to understand what you're saying because of their thinking. But the scientific method is to start from a question. You create a hypothesis, you carry out the process, you get your results, then you form a conclusion. But when someone's starting from a conclusion, making the conclusion their hypothesis and forcing it to end up at their conclusion so they can be back at the start from what they concluded, it's an impossible situation to make any progress. But it's easy to tell, like, the reality of the situation, whether the person's just deliberately blocking it out. Because it's like, if I phone Samaritans at times, I talk to them, and it doesn't always work, because some people are so intent on helping you, and the fact that they're not getting anywhere, they become frustrated with the fact that they're not meeting the end that they concluded they could reach from the start. Whereas other people, you talk to them and it's literally like they've got an empty mind. They've got a blank page. They're sitting there with a pen and paper saying, tell me your story. And they let you tell your story. They let you build the construct of what you're trying to say. Well, then that person hasn't started from a conclusion. They're starting with questions. All they've got is questions. You know, they're giving you a genuine empty space to build your constructs in. It doesn't seem to happen with therapists, and I can tell when someone's got a blockage or not, because it's obvious. But there's some people who you have ongoing processes with, people who are around you in an ongoing way. They need your strength. They see you as strong, but they fail to accept the reality is that they're weak. But you are always stronger than their weakness. You know, you are always there for them when they are weak, and you're the one who sorts it all out. So when they come to you and their life's a mess, or they come to you with a problem that needs solving, then your mind is the greatest thing they could have in their life, and they're so happy to have that have that in their life. They might not show that, they might not admit that, they might not say that, they might not be grateful, but then again, they're the sort of people who want to take from you all the time. But when you can tidy up that mess for them, they lay it all out there, you align it, you sort it out, you fix it, you feed it back to them, and the constructs, metaphors, or scenarios that you'd use as an example to explain the situation back to them, you adjust for everyone you're talking to. And the only way that you can find the right ones to use with that person is because you know that person so well. If you didn't know them so well, you wouldn't be able to communicate everything back to them so well. And there's a capability of your mind that you can take on everything they're saying, realise what they're not saying. You can find something else that they already know and understand, and you can relate everything to that, give it back to them in that form, and then they fully understand the reality of the situation they're in now. So you can only do that with them because you know them so well, and because they're depending on you to tidy up their mess. So when it satisfies them that you have this intelligent mind, that you are clever and that you can see through things, then they like you. But when it's that same sort of a situation where they have to accept something about themselves or their behaviour, and you need to work on the communication between you, and they have to accept that you've got this mind and you can see through things and you know how things work, all of a sudden you're against deliberate, constant opposition. So they're already at a conclusion of some kind. They're already at a point, they're not giving you a blank space. You see, like, When they need to know something, they'll give you a blank space. When they've got a complete mess they want you to tidy up, they'll respect your mind. But then when you've got something you need to explain to them, all of a sudden there's a blockage. And it'll just be constant opposition. Just stupid things like, say you need to let go of your past. But the reason they're not listening to you at the moment is because all their beliefs in the past that you're alright. So you tell them here and now in the moment this is wrong. They won't accept that that is wrong in the moment. They try to convince you that you're alright based on all their experiences of you in the past. So they're clinging on to the past. They won't let go of their past. They're trying to make their past the moment right now. So the only way you can prove where you are in the moment is to explain how you got there, and then they have a go at you and say, oh, you've got some sort of mental problem, you need medical help, you can't get over your past. It's just like, really? If that is the problem, then you've got that problem. You're the reason why I'm talking about my past. I wouldn't be talking about my past if you'd listen now. They say, I didn't know, and then they say, oh, you keep repeating yourself. So I can only be repeating myself if I've said it a lot of times before. So then how could you say you didn't know? You see, it's either that you didn't know or I'm repeating myself. You know, it really can't be both situations, but that is deliberate opposition. No matter what you say, they will oppose you because they need to oppose you, because they need to shut you down. And it will be a constant process of everything you say. They'll say something back as if that defeats what you've said. But you know they're not clever enough to actually defeat what you've said. They just want to believe they've defeated what you said. But then, like, if you allow that to then stand, you have to live as whatever they offered you as a defeat, whatever they offered you as an opposition. But the thing is, their oppositions jump around here, there and everywhere and make no logical sense. But then, if they think that they're right in all those stupid things that they say that make no logical sense, then they're just showing you how messed up their head is. Because they think every time you say that, they can say that back, and they think that actually makes sense, and they think that makes sense, and they think if you line up all those things that they're saying as opposition, all of it makes sense, and none of it does. It just proves how senseless they are. And that's where you start to see that it's deliberate opposition. And the only reason they're doing that is because they're at a conclusion. And they won't move from that conclusion. They won't tell you what that conclusion is. Because if they tell you what that conclusion is, there's a chance you could remove it, and what they are doing is they're depending on that conclusion. You see, if they've already concluded that they don't like you, or that you're a problem for them in some way because they're too emotionally fragile to deal with things and it's easier just to blame you, then they're not going to be honest about that, are they? You know, for some of my family it was literally a problem that I was born, because they stood to lose out. Like my cousins depended on my mum and dad to be there for them, to give them what they want when they want, because they want, because of the situation they're in. So when I come along, they lost out on that. But because my parents were so great in their eyes, then my life must be perfect, because I had these great parents, I had these great people as parents, and my life must be amazing, and they've got every reason to resent me because they lost out on that. But that wasn't the case at all. No, it wasn't the truth, it wasn't the reality. My parents liked having me as a pacifier for my brother, because him having me like a toy meant that they didn't have to deal with him being upset, because he could use me to get it out of his system. And they weren't going to stop that. You see, they already had a conclusion that it had to happen, that it had to be that way, that everyone else was safer with my brother abusing me. So therefore they weren't ever going to let that stop. They'd have to stand up to him, which they didn't want to do, and he might get upset, and they might lose him, and he might leave, he might harm himself, something might happen to him, and it might be a bad experience just for a moment for him, and he might have to accept himself. So find ways to blame me. You know, leave him alone, stop winding him up, stay out of his way, do as you're told. He came to me, he got in my face, he was already upset, and he was telling me to do something I shouldn't be doing. Oh, he came to me, I told him to go away and leave me alone, and then I got the punishment for not engaging with him. So I am leaving him alone, I am staying out of his way, and I didn't do anything to wind him up. He was already wound up. But you see, they're already at the conclusion that the world's a better place while he's got me to inflict on. And the world's a better place when they can blame me for it. So why would they want to remove that? It's just absolutely insane. But as I say, when you talk to people and they actually build the constructs of reality of what you're saying, then you know they genuinely have an empty space for you to build that in. For instance, my neighbour's kid was winding him up, going on about how a car works, how does a car work. He was only young at the time. And yeah, they asked that question, why? Why isn't a question to what you've just said? Why doesn't it make sense as a question to what you've said? So therefore you become frustrated and because I said so. You might as well just tell them to shut the fuck up. Because that is what you're doing. You want them to be silent, afraid of asking and confused. That is how you're leaving them. Surely to overwhelm them with too much information, with the most vast explanation you can give, but still within the confines of what they'll understand, would be better. You know, both result in silence. You know, because I said so and given an explanation, they'll both result in silence, which is the real end outcome that you want. But with because I said so, it's silence in fear and confusion. With an explanation, it's silence in amazement and wonder, which I think is a better form of silence. But what you've got to do is realise when they're saying why, like you say, because, like, why does a car work? Well, you put petrol in it and it goes. Yeah, but why? Well, you push the pedals, you turn the wheel and it drives. Why? It's hard to work out a why that you can answer. So the kid's actually saying, what is it that actually makes that happen? But they don't know words like internal combustion engine. So they wouldn't be able to ask you, how does an internal combustion engine work? But in reality, that might be the information that their mind's seeking. So then what you have to do is break yourself down and work out what they mean when they're saying why. You know, do you mean what is this? Do you mean what is that? Or do you mean how do those things interact? Because there'd be more articulate questions, but the child isn't able to articulate those questions because they don't understand. So when you say, do you mean this, or do you mean that, or do you mean how do they interact, and the kid goes, yeah, that means they don't understand anything of it. And then now you know they don't understand any of what this is or what that is or how it interacts, and you need to go back another stage to explain what this is, to explain what that is, then explain how it interacts, and then any questions from there. But yeah, if I can explain to like a little kid how an internal combustion engine works by using a Thomas the Tank Engine toy, then I'm pretty sure I can explain most things to most people. Because you see, with a Thomas the Tank Engine toy, as long as they've seen a real steam train and they understand the different bits, and you can get online and you put the coal in there, that heats up the water water turns to steam, that creates pressure, the pressure moves the piston turns the wheel, you see it's on a cam wheel, that goes round and that creates drive. Well, then you just translate into an engine. You've got 4 little small pistons. The liquid goes in, it gets ignited, that turns to a gas which expands really quickly. That pushes that drives that turns the cam wheel, that creates drive. The clutch connects the engine to the wheels, and then you're driving. And they sit there in amazement and wonder, where you see their eyes darting around their brain trying to put it all together and think about it. And you wanted them to be silent, then find the most positive way to make them silent. Because I said so, you might as well have just looked in their face and said, shut the fuck up. And if someone did walk up to your kid and say, shut the fuck up, I don't think you'd be too happy about it, would you? But you are pretty much saying that when you break it down to the base patterns. Be silent, in confusion, and afraid to ask again. That is what "cause I said so" means. I don't see why people don't take the time to really sort of break themselves down and build themselves back up, you know? Break yourself down and think, what constructs do they understand? See, for me it was easy, like an engine, how does it work? Have you got a Thomas the Tank Engine toy? Yeah, right, bang. Here you go, this is how it works, that's what it's doing. It's not exactly not exactly difficult, you just have to just take that time to think and put yourself aside. You want them to understand it in your way, and I think sometimes as well with parents, they don't actually understand. You know, how many people really do understand exactly how the engine works? To then be able to create a metaphor of the steam engine, to then be able to explain the steam engine, and to explain that in such a way and then build that up into an internal combustion engine. Maybe that's the problem sometimes, but with the world of the internet and everything else, and everyone making videos about everything, and how much effort does it really take to say, let's find out? How much effort does it take? Let's find out. You don't know yourself. Wouldn't it be interesting to sit there and learn? You know, when you find it and say, remember you were asking about, and then show them that. Make a list of the things they ask. Make the effort to teach them what's what. Actually inspire their minds. Everyone moans about them sitting there doing nothing, playing computer games, getting in trouble, doing this, doing that. And come up with things to do, think of things to do. You listen to them, technically they're always telling you what they want to do. They want to learn something, they want to know something, they want to understand something. They want to have something in their life. It doesn't cost money to type in how does a car work, does it? It doesn't cost money if you've already got the computer there. It costs you a little bit of time where you have to put yourself aside and think of them first, and think in the way they think. The more effort you make to think in the way they think, the more chance you've got to help them with the way they think and actually bring them up to thinking like you. And you want them to grow and be on that level. It doesn't happen instantly. It's a process that takes time. But you see, like that, the reason why I was able to communicate such technical information to that child is because he had an empty space sitting there waiting to be filled, wanting that information, wanting to know it. And then he followed me along every step of the way, understanding it, working it out. Same with phoning Samaritans sometimes. I get people who I end up on the phone to for hours where they really want to know the ins and outs and they want to understand it better because they want to grow their understanding. At the end of the call saying thank you for phoning. See, I feel like an infliction. They're saying thank you for phoning. So then when I come up against a therapist, a medical professional, a member of my family who won't move, who won't budge, who won't let me build those constructs, their mind is already filled with something. They have not got the empty space for me. Well then why are they suggesting that we talk? Why is it all about talking? When they already know they're not in a position to talk, why don't they tell me their conclusions and then we work around that before we start trying to start with my story?